Hey everybody, welcome back to Heartland Productions. Doing something a little different today. I'm testing out some more pizza making equipment, so stay tuned to the full video so you can see this great new product that I'm going to test out for you all today. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to the newest family member of my pizza making family. This is my new spiral mixer. This is the spiral mixer from Vevor. Some people say Vevor, whichever way you want to pronounce it, that's great. 100% transparency. They did send me this mixer free of charge to test out and review and to give my opinion. There's no contracts, I'm not being paid to do this. I told them up front the only way I would do it is if I could give 100% my own opinion without any input from them, etc., and they agreed. So I'm going to tell you all of my pros, all of the cons of purchasing this mixer, and 100% honest. I'm not going to beat around the bush and tell you it's great if it isn't. I'm not going to tell you it's a piece of junk if it actually works well too. So stay tuned, watch the whole video till the very end. I will also put more information about this specific mixer in the description of the video below, and they included a discount code too, so if that helps you out or if you're interested. And reach out to me. I'd love to hear your comments too. If any of you have spiral mixers, and if you like them, don't like them, if you've had this brand before or something else and kind of your experiences, it's not only for me to read, but it's to help all the other subscribers too to get more information, because if you're going to invest money into something like this too, I want you to have the most information possibly. So here's a little closer look. This is the mixer. It has a stainless steel bowl, has the guard that's stainless steel also. It's a very simple design. This is a kind of a copy, a knockoff of an Italian brand that's very famous for making spiral mixers for pizza making. It literally has just a few buttons. It has an on and an off, and it has basically just a manual turn timer. So you just turn this to whatever, hit the green button to start, and it runs for however many minutes you set the timer. If you have to reset for any reason, you just hit reset, etc. Very simple, very easy. When you lift this up, the guard, it shuts off the rotation of it, so it's for safety. So if you have to reach your hand down in, here's a quick walk around. There's really nothing else to it. Let me give you a little bird's eye view, kind of opening it up. This is the main difference between a spiral mixer and a regular mixer, is that the bowl actually rotates and the spiral rotates in a different direction too. So it provides a level of mixing far superior to a standard mixer like a KitchenAid style, like my one back there. It's not for everything. I think this one's really hyper specific for making pizza and possibly making bread dough also, but other than that, it can be a little more complicated. So as I expected, cleaning it is a little bit more complicated than the KitchenAid, especially not being able to take this up or remove the bowl. I had the great idea of like, oh, I'll just add hot water to the bowl. That way it'll keep it from getting all sticky and like the dough from hardening up after I remove the dough. And then my wife conveniently reminded me that I'm gonna have to pick up this whole entire thing and dump it into the sink to get the water out. So very difficult, very hard. This thing weighs almost 100 pounds, so not very easy to move around. And then to drain water out of the bowl, I had to pick the whole thing up and tilt it into the sink. Very big pain in the butt. So hopefully I'll learn some best practices with it, but can definitely see how the hinge top and the removable bowl option on the more expensive Italian versions is probably a good option too. All right. I do miss the ease of the KitchenAid, being able to just take the bowl off and clean, but it's actually not as bad as I expected. I'm not sure exactly why. I think that since the spiral mixer, it incorporated the flour and the water and mixed the dough so much better that there's less dough left in the bowl to kind of scrape and get off. So maybe that's the thing. It's not as hard as I expected. So hopefully pretty much only took me a couple minutes, kind of looking pretty good, just using a wet sponge and kind of scraping and then getting all the flour and dough remaining out. Now for the hard part, getting it from here back into the pantry. Whew. Like I said, this thing, probably better to do this with 2 people. Very, very, very heavy. At least it has these big rubber things on the bottom. All right, into the pantry. So let's get right down to it. So the price of this spiral mixer is $489.99. I know a lot of you people are going to say, wow, that's crazy expensive, etc., compared to some of the mixers you see like at Walmart, Target, etc. But this is very specific type. This is a spiral mixer. This type of mixer is ideal, and really it's the best type of mixer you can get if you're going to be doing authentic Neapolitan pizza dough or artisan breads, things like that. The capabilities of having a spiral mixer and the way it actually mixes up the dough and incorporates the flour and water is really a different level. So if you are going to be hyper specific, making Neapolitan or making great artisan doughs for breads, etc., then this would be something I would definitely consider. If you're just making a few pizzas here and there, or making New York style or other styles, like kind of a lower hydration doughs or smaller batches, making less than maybe 5 or 6 dough balls, etc., you don't really need something like this. Get a small KitchenAid like the one I have back there. That's really all you need. But for me, I've been wanting something like this for the last year or so, that once I started making, at a minimum, I'm making enough dough for at least probably 10, 15 pizzas every time I make a batch of dough. And my little KitchenAid basically hit a limit where I couldn't make enough dough. I was having to make double batches, which just takes twice as long. So with this one, I can make triple the amount of dough in one day. So I can bake it and then I can freeze any extras I have, etc. Long story short, $489.99. For what you're getting, that is a bargain price. So we'll start right off the bat with the pros price point. At $489, this is way below anything else in this market, this style of mixer. As I mentioned in the intro, this is basically almost an exact copy of a very famous Italian spiral mixer. And the entry level for this size spiral mixer from that brand is going to be right at around $2,000. I mean, sometimes you can get a smaller version, a little bit smaller, for maybe $1,500, $1,600, but $489 is a lot less. If you're not willing to invest thousands of dollars into a mixer, then this is maybe the only choice, maybe the only option for you too. So for me, at a price point, I wasn't willing to spend $2,000 buying the Italian version, which what I really wanted it, but I wasn't sure if I needed it or I would like the results and the functionality of it, etc. So I opted to test this out to see if it's something that I like. I'm viewing this more kind of as an entry level into this. I'm going to use this for a long time, kind of get to know it well, get all the ins and outs, master the usage of it, and then at the end, the long term, I will probably end up investing in the Italian version also, just because that's what I really wanted. Another pro of this is the capacity. As I mentioned, this thing is huge. This is 8 liters or 8.5 quarts. So it's way above my standard KitchenAid. To put example, my KitchenAid maxes out, I can do about 1 kilo of flour for my pizza dough. That's kind of my normal pizza dough batch. That makes about 8 or 9 dough balls at between 250 and 280 grams. So that's the max with my KitchenAid. This mixer, I can actually triple that recipe. So I can do 3,000 kilos. I can do, that's about 6.2 pounds of flour. So I can basically triple my batch of dough, and I can make enough pizza to cook it today for a pizza party and have a freezer full of dough balls left over for the future too. So for me, that is a huge thing where I can spend a few hours one weekend, make dough, and I have dough for 3 weeks. If you are fanatical about making Neapolitan pizza, and that's really the thing you want to do, or you're just making tons of pizza dough, like high volumes, lots and lots, like way more than just a few dough balls, then this is the best type of mixer you can actually get. A spiral mixer is going to be the top level for Neapolitan pizza dough. This thing is created specifically for making Neapolitan pizza. This is a very niche product. You don't need it if you're just a casual baker in your house making pizza once in a while. But if you are a fanatic, and some would say slightly compulsive like myself, this thing is pretty amazing, and it's been so interesting to learn and see how a spiral mixer really differs from my standard KitchenAid mixer. Another pro of this device is the sheer power of this. As I mentioned earlier with my KitchenAid, is that making my current batch of dough with about, give or take, kind of 1 big bag of flour, so about 1 kilo of flour plus my Biga and the water, etc., that is the absolute, not only from a volume perspective, that's the limits of how much dough I can put in the bowl. I can actually go more than that. The issue is the power, is that pushes the motor of my KitchenAid to the maximum limits, where it not only it sounds like it's going to blow up, but it gets so hot and almost overheats. So doing that every week, I'm at the point where I wouldn't be surprised if my KitchenAid doesn't survive much longer. I mean, I've had it for over 10 years and it works great. I love KitchenAid, but for making this style of pizza dough and the volumes that I'm looking at, is that it just can't handle it anymore. I need something bigger. This motor is amazing. It's extremely heavy duty. This is a commercial mixer. This is driven by a very heavy duty motor, and it has a chain. So it's not a belt. It's not any kind of gears or rotors. This has kind of cogs and sprockets, and it has a huge metal chain that drives the spiral mixer of this. So this thing is indestructible. It's very, very heavy duty. You could do, like I mentioned, triple the amount of dough that I used to do in my KitchenAid, and it stirs it up and mixes it without any issues at all. So the last pro, I would say, this is a big mixer, but in comparison with the amount of volume and the capacity of it, I think the overall footprint of this is pretty amazing. You're getting very high volume, very large capacity, and huge amounts of dough you can make with this. And it's, in general, for a commercial mixer, this is still a very compact and small mixer for the amount of dough you can make in it. So it's 19.5 inches deep, so from the front to the back. It's 15.2 inches from the ground, or from the floor, 15.2 inches high from the bottom to the top. So all up here, obviously when you open this up, it's going to go up another almost 1.5 feet. So you do need clearance if you're using it, but for storage, 15.2 inches is all you need. And then it's 11.9 inches wide. So we'll round that up to about 12 inches wide. And that's kind of from the widest points here to here. So that footprint, I'm saying, is, in my opinion, this is still a relatively small and compact mixer for the amount of dough you can make with this thing. That kind of rounds up my pros. Now let me talk a little bit about some of the things I don't like about this mixer. So I'd say my number one thing that I don't really like about this mixer is that it is a knockoff brand, or it's an off brand, whatever word you want to use. This is almost a direct copy from a very well-known, a very reputable Italian version of this. So when you go with a knockoff brand or a copy, something like that, kind of the made in China version of it, there are some differences. I think the overall aesthetics, it looks pretty similar to the Italian one. It's kind of the minor details. It's the overall craftsmanship of building this. You'll notice too, there's some chips in the paint, some little areas. So little chips here, little scuffs. Nothing from a functionality perspective. It's very basic, very plain. I think it's in the internal components that it's just a slightly cheaper version. They didn't use the best of the best for materials, paints, things like that. From a functionality perspective, only time will tell. It works amazing right now. I don't know in 3 years if this will still work or it'll start falling apart, etc. So craftsmanship would be one of my concerns as far as buying an off-brand. And then another thing is, I've read a lot of reviews about customer service and then them not fulfilling the warranty too. So you run the risk when you buy these kind of off-market, off-brand. There's a chance that if something goes wrong, you're not going to get any help. You're not going to get your money back. I don't know that for a fact, but I wouldn't, if you're going to buy this, I would assume that you're going to have very bad customer service and the warranty is probably pretty much not going to be existent. So another big thing with this is that this thing is crazy heavy. This weighs almost 82 pounds. So if you're a smaller person, if you're not very muscular and don't have a lot of upper body strength or have a bad back, this may not be the mixer for you. I can pick this up, I can take it from the pantry and put it up on the counter, but it's a struggle and I have to be very conscious about lifting with my legs, not my back, so I don't hurt myself, because it's a struggle. It's very hard to pick up and move around. So not for the faint of heart. So if you're a smaller person or you don't consider yourself a very strong person or you have some physical limitations, that I would probably err on the side of caution and go with something like a smaller KitchenAid, because I'm probably going to look into buying some type of small little stainless steel cart with caster wheels on it where I can push it into my pantry and keep it so I don't have to keep lifting it up and carrying it. So weight is another huge issue for some. Not a deal breaker for me, but that could be for some. Another thing is that the Italian version make kind of their top line version of this style has a tilt. So the actual head of the mixer, this part right here, not only the lid, but this entire top part actually hinges and tops up. So you can open it up and the bowl is removable. With this model, this is the basic model. So this is a fixed top. This does not hinge, it does not come up, and the actual bowl of the mixer is not removable. So the potential of having issues cleaning it, it's a little bit different. So a lot of people are used to making dough in their KitchenAid or whatever. You take the bowl out, you move it, you wash it, you can dump the dough. It's very easy. This one, you actually have to pull the dough out of it, and then you have to clean it kind of using a sponge and with your hand, because it does not come off. And it's too heavy to lift up and kind of put over by the sink and stuff like that. So you have to be very cautious about that. For Neapolitan pizza dough or for artisan like sourdough breads, your dough basically incorporates into one big mass of dough, so it's relatively easy to pull it out and minimal amount of mess in the bowl when you're done. I didn't find that too big of an issue. I was very concerned about how hard it was going to be to clean, but it was surprisingly very easy. Two other quick things that kind of followed in the con list, or the things I didn't like, is that this is only a one speed. So it's a one speed fits all. Again, for me, for making my pizza dough, oh, I keep hitting the microphone, sorry. For making my style of pizza dough, and I think for most kind of bread doughs, one speed's not a bad thing. It's kind of set right in that perfect speed where it's not too fast, not too slow. But if you were going to use this for other things where you needed to have a super slow speed or a very fast speed to incorporate ingredients, this again is probably not going to be the best bet. Last but not least, the one thing that for me is that I desperately wanted the Italian version of this, and I wanted the red color. That was like my ultimate dream spiral mixer. This one only comes in white. So if you're dead set on getting a specific color and you want it to match all your other things in your kitchen, or you just love a certain color, is that you're kind of out of luck, because if you go with this option, you only get the white. As I mentioned at the beginning, I'm not a big fan of knockoff brands. I really wasn't a big fan of this brand or company. They've been asking me to test stuff for the last few years, and I've always said no. I desperately wanted a spiral mixer, and like I said, I just didn't have the budget. I can't afford right now to spend $2,000 on a mixer just to make pizza. So when they reached out again to me a couple weeks ago and said they wanted to send me this to test out, I jumped at the chance. I had expected to really not like it, or to really basically say, you know what, it's kind of junky. But in honesty, for $489, I think this is an extremely solid mixer. It made absolutely amazing pizza dough. Some of the best, if not the best pizza dough I've ever made since I started a few years ago came out of my first batch with this oven. I'll put some pictures up of the pizzas that I made last weekend with it. It was absolutely amazing. It incorporated the dough, the texture. I didn't have to use hardly any olive oil or any additional flour. I was able to pull the dough right out, and it was just absolutely amazing. I was extremely impressed and very satisfied. I also loved the capacity. It was so nice to make a huge amount of dough. I made enough for about 20 dough balls the other day. All in all, for $489, I think it's actually a pretty decent oven. So if you can get over the fact that this is a kind of a knockoff brand, that I can get over that too. Like at the price point, if you don't like it, use it for a year or two, get your money's worth of it, and then you can resell it, do whatever, and then you can actually save up and buy the Italian version. If you have enough to buy the Italian version, I would probably go for that. If I had the $2,000 to spend on that and I didn't have 3 teenagers to send to college, I would buy the Italian one. But for me, this is a great way to start, to try it out, to test it, to see if you really like it before you invest in something like the Italian version of this. Only time will tell. I have my doubts that this thing will be around in 5 years. Maybe I'll only get a couple years before the motor blows or something breaks off. But if I can get a good year or two out of making great pizza with this, I think it's worth the investment. So again, leave a bunch of comments in the bottom. Let me know your experiences with this brand or with spiral mixers. I was absolutely amazed. This is definitely going to be my go-to mixer for the next, well, until something happens with it or I get something better. But thank you all for watching. Have a good rest of your day. Bye. Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3.